Get ready for a no BS approach to health and fitness. This is NBS Fitness Radio.
All right, what's up, everyone? This is episode 2 of the NBS Fitness Radio podcast. We are here with Matt Harford, who is a trainer at NBS Fitness. Matt, introduce yourself and kind of give us your athletic background, and then talk to us a little bit about kind of your training background, what you do.
All right, cool. So like David said, my name is Matt Harford. I've been a trainer at NBS for a little over a year and a half. Athletic background, I played pretty much every sport in high school, or not in high school, leading up to high school. So I did baseball, football, basketball, golf, specialized in baseball from high school to college. And then from there, I've been training ever since. Trained a little bit in powerlifting, bodybuilding type stuff. Been doing CrossFit for the past 2 years-ish. And really specialized in helping high school kids kind of reach their athletic potential as they get ready for college. And then really more less developed college kids as they get ready for life after college.
Very cool. Why is that kind of like your passion? Why do you enjoy working with athletes specifically?
I love working with athletes because at some point in time, pretty much everybody that's ever lived was some type of athlete, right? So maybe they stopped being an athlete in 6th grade. Maybe they stopped being an athlete at 25, right? So I like having these young kids that are still athletes and helping them realize that even though, you know, they may stop playing sports at whatever point, they need to keep training like athletes, keep training functional movements, keep moving.
Yeah.
So I love inspiring that in kids and get the best out of them.
Very cool. And I think you're probably like me in a sense that like when I was in high school, I didn't know what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, if I knew what I knew now,
yep,
like what kind of athlete could I have been?
Yep.
You know, and so
100%. You know, like 4 years of high school programming brought by my baseball coach, where I leg pressed, I did bicep curls, and I did rear delt flies, and that's all I remember. Like didn't squat, didn't deadlift, nothing else.
Right. Yeah, I was like, I got the client Oliver now. He's like in 7th grade and deadlifts 225 for 4 reps.
Yep.
I'm like, well, holy crap. Like, I don't know if I did that till I was a junior, senior in high school.
Yep, no way.
I don't know if I even deadlifted in high school. So
I didn't. I know I didn't.
All right. Well, very cool, Matt. So today's topic is kind of major mistakes that high school athletes make, specifically in their training and just athletic development. So I've got 3, Matt's got 3, and we're just going to jump right into it. Cool?
Cool.
All right.
Do it.
So my first one is what I call fractured training. So the biggest mistake I see in high school athletic development and in middle school athletic development is what I call fractured training. And what I mean by that is, for most high school, middle school athletes, what they do is they kind of bounce around from sport to sport, but there's no real like developmental program underlying all that. So they'll go and do, you know, training for football in the summer and in the fall, and then they'll go do basketball practice in the winter, and then baseball practice in the spring. And each sport has its own coach who has its own developmental program, own weightlifting program for that sport. Yep. And so it's fractured in the sense that there's no like real 6, 8, 10, 12 year kind of developmental plan in place. It's just kind of bouncing around from one sport to one sport to one sport to one sport. And then unfortunately what happens is that's not the worst thing ever, because at least playing multiple sports gets you different training methodologies and different skill sets and different movements, and you're not getting the same like repetitive use issues. But nowadays, if you're a moderately good baseball player in 6th grade, they say, hey, we want you to start playing competitive ball, and now we want you to start playing. So we're going to double your season. You can play spring and summer. And then you're going to start playing fall ball. And then you're going to start doing extra specialized training with a batting coach, a pitching coach, a fielding coach, all that kind of stuff. And so then you don't even get any like variety in training. Now it's just one thing. So that's my number one, is fractured training, no underlying program that's meant to develop them as an athlete, like as a total athlete. Instead, what you see is like sport-specific training popping around from season to season.
Yep. And it sounds like, you get that continuum to develop the athlete like a straight line. And each sport is like they're running full speed and then they're banging off of this wall, then going off of this wall, then back to this wall. And then 6 months later, they're back to where they started doing that stuff. So there's no real way to develop or show their progress over time.
Yeah. There's no like objective way to say like you are getting better as an athlete. Mm-hmm. It's just we think you're getting better as a specific sports player, but we don't really know. And then unfortunately, like the sports coach themselves, I mean, they're responsible for making you the best sports specific player for that team during that season. I'm not saying it's their fault. I'm just saying like it's a flawed system.
Yep.
But as I said, they're not measuring your athletic development over your lifetime. Mm-hmm. They're just saying this season we need you to be XYZ, right?
Yep, exactly.
All right, cool. So that's my number one. Matt, your number one was lack of sleep. Tell us some more.
So my number one was lack of sleep. Basically being, first off, because based off of studies that I've seen and that I've read, sleep is going to be the most important for kids. And then as you get older, you require less and less, right? So they need sleep. They go to school 8 to 3, say they practice 4 to 6, they go eat, they do homework 7 to 10, whatever. And then these days, these kids are staying up playing video games, watching movies, hanging out with their girlfriends, and not really prioritizing it. I remember when I was in high school, the famous expression from pretty much every one of my friends was like, hey, you can sleep when you're dead. Like we're going to do this, like sleep when you're dead. Nobody remembers nights that they got a good night's sleep. But in terms of reaching that athletic potential, like keep digging that hole, keep being in a deficit, keep living like that. Eventually it's going to catch up to them. It might not catch up to them when they're 20. It might catch up to them when they're 30, 35. But eventually it is going to hit like a rock, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by lack of sleep, and especially these kids that are playing, baseball, football, basketball. Then summer they're trying to juggle all three, and then they're trying to do school, ACT prep work, stuff like that. It's just so much that it's almost impossible to sleep. So when you throw in the distractions like video games, all the TV that we watch, and girlfriends, boyfriends, it makes it difficult.
Yeah, it's like the theory that more is always better.
Yep.
And so we're only thinking about like more stimulus, like you said. Mm-hmm. Hey, you want to be better? We got to do more.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember I had a guy I trained. He was in 8th grade at the time, mm-hmm. and his parents had homeschooled him so that he could spend extra time focusing on baseball so that he could make a high school baseball program.
Yep.
Which, just to be completely open and honest, if you're having to do that to make the high school baseball program, like you're probably not going to go on beyond high school,
exactly,
or at least to like a high level, definitely not to the pros or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, but he had 3-hour practices a week. Mm-hmm. He had a tournament almost every weekend. He had a pitching coach, a hitting coach, a fielding coach, a speed coach, and then they wanted to add me in as like a strength and conditioning coach. I was like, this kid's already doing like 30 plus hours of like training a week. Like he's already doing more than like most professional athletes do from a training load standpoint. I was like, I'm not going to take him on unless you cancel some of that stuff. I don't want to be part of this pouring more on. I think that's probably a good lesson for parents of athletes to understand that like more is not always the answer.
Exactly.
And for us, like we didn't like in high school, I think the biggest video game we had was maybe PlayStation, mm-hmm.
Like the original PlayStation 1.
Yeah. And then I think maybe Xbox senior year, but meaning like you couldn't, and we didn't have cell phones that could send text messages.
Yeah.
So we didn't quite have as many distractions or opportunities to miss out on sleep as kids do now. It was kind of like, well, it's 9, 10 o'clock and I don't have anything to do. I'm going to sleep, right?
Yep, exactly.
But they've got all those distractions. So yeah, definitely like lack of sleep is something that plagues almost every athlete that walks in these doors.
Yep.
Very cool. Okay, my number 2 was the workouts not being developmentally varied. And what I mean by that is, I'm gonna give an example. So I was working with a female basketball player in high school, and I went and talked to their basketball coach about their programming, how it could help and everything. And his statement was, he goes, well, I mean, they're females, which obviously that is the complete wrong approach to it. Yeah. But then he said, we use the same program that like the 93 or 96 Bulls use. And like in his mind, he was like, well, this is what one of the greatest basketball teams in history used. So this is what we're going to use. Not taking into account that was a program that was at that time 15 years old and designed for professional male basketball players in their 20s and 30s. Yep. And he's applying that to non-professional female teenagers. And I don't think people quite understand the developmental difference between like a mature senior in high school and an immature freshman. Yep. Like a freshman who's a little behind in like pubescent development, and a senior who's like ahead in pubescent development. And that can really be like a biological difference of like 6 to 7 years. Yeah. And that's a huge difference from when it comes to training, especially at that age. And so a lot of times what you see for programming, it's just one program, right? It's just written up on the board. Yep. There's a coach, he writes the workout on the board, everyone just walks in and does the workout. And so the same workout is being used for seniors who have 4 years of development under an experience underneath them, and freshmen who have potentially no weight room experience whatsoever, right? Yeah. And then there's no transitionary period or introductory period for those freshmen. A lot of times it's like seniors who aren't skilled coaches teach these freshmen how to now lift.
Yep, 100%.
And people don't realize that there's a huge developmental difference, and applying the wrong program to someone at the wrong period of their developmental age, at the very least, is going to limit potential development. And but at the worst, you have potential to like create career-ending injuries. Yeah, yeah, and so like simple things like even coaches using like percentage-based loads it's not. I don't think it's a very good practice, because if for that high school team you're using percentage-based loads, well, like that senior probably needs to be using different percentages than a freshman does. And how do we know? And the way that they get those percentages is by doing dumb things like doing a 1-rep max after football season, prior to lifting, to get those percentages. And like the worst time of year to do a 1-rep max is after football season, when your body's trashed and you haven't been lifting at all.
Destroyed.
Right? But they do silly things like that. And not to say that percentage-based work isn't applicable to like more developed athletes, but it's definitely not applicable to newer athletes.
100%. Yeah. It's too much.
It's too much, and their abilities change, so fast. So instantaneously, as they start to develop, the percentages are irrelevant, because now they're going to have new 1-rep maxes.
And they're stronger.
And they're stronger. So like you can put 100 pounds on a freshman squat. You probably can't put 100 pounds on a developed senior squat. So why would you use like the same percentages for both of those? So that's a big one for me, is not having like developmentally varied programs based off of the athlete's current level. All right, Matt, your next one was what?
Ego lifting. So this is one that a lot of times if high school kids train in high school and they start this in high school, this is when it carries over to college and after that. So a lot of times this is when you come into the gym and you see some kid walk in, throw 135 on the bar, immediately start cranking out reps, throw 225 on the bar, reps, 315 reps, then whatever, singles after that, and just you looked at your watch. Okay, did all that in 15 minutes.
Yeah. How many high school kids are you seeing coming in at the 315 for reps on the bar?
So, not many high school kids are on 315 for reps on the bar for sure. But
yeah, I
general consensus is that if they start that in high school, they start just lifting and doing whatever they saw on Instagram. They saw so-and-so do this on Instagram. Well, I want to do that tomorrow. It's like, so I'm going to try to deadlift 400 pounds. I've never deadlifted over 250. But you know what? You only live once. Let's give it a shot. So we throw all technique out of the equation. We just drop down. We do everything we can to get the bar up. Maybe you don't hurt yourself the first time you do that. Maybe you don't hurt yourself for 10 years doing that. But eventually that's going to just pile up and just completely implode on you, right? I saw one study that I think it was like 40% or not 40%, I think it was 30% of all adults, some have, bulging discs that will show up on MRIs that they have no pain with, right? So what if you have one of those bulging discs and you developed it when you're 15 and then you don't get pain with it until you're 40 and then you can't walk?
Right.
So if we learn the technique, we learn how to brace, we learn how to actually lift with our full body, and then we apply that to lightweight and then incrementally move up year after year, month after month, it's so much better than just coming in here like, all right, I want to see how strong I am every single day. This week we did 1. Next week I'm going to try to do 5 reps. Next week I'm trying to do 20. And then I'm back to 1 because I want to do 1 again, right?
Yeah.
So that is one of the biggest problems I see starting in high school, because they see it on social media. They see all these strong lifters and they don't know how those strong lifters achieved that success. So they just like, I see them doing 1 rep with heavy weight. I want to do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of similar to like not being developmentally varied.
Exactly.
It's doing things that are not applicable to your current level.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily the athlete's fault. It's they don't have anyone in their ear or anyone being a good representation to them, like, hey, and talk to them like, hey, this is the correct way to do it.
Yep.
And that's not how we approach other areas of sports. I mean, we don't take a beginning basketball player and start drawing up complex plays and talking about setting picks and all that kind of stuff. We say, okay, we're going to teach you how to dribble the ball, right? And we're going to do ball dribble drills until you've got that kind of foundation now, and then we'll start to add complexity to it.
Yep.
And with regards to lifting, I think a lot of times, I say this from experience, I definitely didn't have a long-term view.
Yeah.
When it came to training. Like when you're in high school, you don't necessarily think okay, I'm going to set myself up for success over the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. You're really
it was just more, right? Yeah.
I'll do something cool today. I know what I did in high school is I got into bodybuilding, but I was playing sports. So what I ended up doing was buying Ronnie Coleman's training guide and doing a training guide done by someone with far superior genetics than me, way more development and maturity in the weight room than me, who played a sport that I didn't play.
Yep.
For the sports that I was playing.
Yep.
But I didn't have anyone going explain to me, hey, David, hey, totally understand, that's cool. Ronnie Coleman's awesome. He's super strong. But here's the deal. If we set you up now with just the basic lifts, if we teach you how to squat, to bench, to do deadlifts, to do pull-ups, to do rows, we build your posterior chain and build up your core, not only is that going to make you better at baseball, better at football, it's going to make you overall stronger. It's probably going to build more muscle, and it's going to set you up to be bigger and stronger down the road. When you are Ronnie Coleman's age, if you do that workout, having this foundation is going to even help you out more. But I didn't have that.
Yep.
So I did the same thing. I was like, I want to be big like Ronnie Coleman, so I'm going to do Ronnie Coleman's
I'm going to do what Ronnie Coleman does.
Exactly.
And it goes back to, the cliche of Rome wasn't built in a day. Michael Jordan wasn't Michael Jordan when he was 10 years old, right? It's constant development and getting better and better and better, and then eventually reaching that peak, right? And if we do that right, that peak could be, 35, 40 years of age, right? Versus we do that wrong and we peak at 18, and then it's just a constant down spiral till we're in the ground.
100%. Yeah. And that goes back also to kind of that my first point about having kind of the fractured training is if we have coaches and people in positions that are influencing young athletes that are knowledgeable, and it's not the athlete's responsibility to know that kind of stuff. They're never going to know it.
No.
So it's a responsibility of the people who are involved with their sports careers, their parents, their coaches, to kind of understand that and have a bigger picture view and kind of help guide them through that whole process. Very cool. Okay. My number 3 was poor nutrition. So one of the questions I always ask high school athletes that come in is I'll say, hey, question, how many of your friends follow a good nutrition program? Like, get up, have a good healthy breakfast, maybe have a snack in between breakfast and lunch, or eating good quality foods for lunch, or having a snack before they go to practice, or having something good for dinner. You know, how many of your friends do that? And like across the board, the answer is always like, none.
Yeah.
None. And then, you know, the silly thing is that, like, of course, all these kids are playing sports. A lot of those kids are going and doing like specialized training. A lot of those kids are coming and doing like specialized weight training with professionals.
Yep.
All trying to get like a leg up or like get, you know, be more competitive. But the one thing that no one's doing is eating well.
Yep.
So just like we were talking about sleep, if you're not doing the things necessary to support those habits, if you're not recovering through quality sleep, if you're not fueling yourself with good quality nutrition, then all those other things that you're doing are, like, at best going to be not as impactful, and at worst are going to set you up for an injury or overtraining, or something bad's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think that a big mistake and another huge opportunity for high school athletes, middle school athletes as well, is to start focusing on their nutritional plan and not just their training plan.
Yep. It's like driving, 120 miles an hour straight into a brick wall.
Yeah.
It's like eventually that brick wall is going to come if we don't do exercise, proper nutrition, if we don't sleep, but we're working our body, we're working as hard as we possibly can, and we're going 120. Eventually that wall is going to come, and we're going to slam right into it.
100%. Yeah. Like at some point we're going to suffer the consequences of not taking care of ourselves. Very cool. All right. Last one for Matt was failing to plan, planning to fail.
So I like this one because I think it ties in all the things that we've talked about so far, right? So we talked about fractured training, bouncing around, lack of sleep, lack of nutrition, stuff like that. So failing to plan and planning to fail, either we can start off with you don't have a training plan at all. So say you're a high school athlete, you don't have, you have workouts, but other than that, you do workouts by yourself, and all that you do is you don't have a training plan. You just go in and you're like, all right, I guess today I will do whatever machine is open, right? And then maybe I'll hop on the treadmill and jog for 30 minutes or something like that. Then we could have, person B who walks in, he's got a training program, not necessarily a program, but he sees a workout that somebody posted online, like, hey, here's a really hard workout. I'm going to show you all the exercises I did. It's on Instagram. So he sees that, he runs through it. Again, really hard workout. So he might get better, but there's no structure in it. It's just beating yourself for no reason, right? And then there's C, getting an online program from one of these fitness influencers on Instagram that kind of goes back into, program being built for somebody who might be 18 and you might be 14, right? So you're not developed enough to do this program, but he sold this program to, 5,000 people, for $9.99. So you're like, hey, I'm sure I'll get better with it. And you might get better at first.
Yeah.
But
doing something is going to.
Yeah. Doing something is always going to be better than doing nothing.
Yeah.
But at some point we have to add that structure. We have to actually prepare and plan.
Yeah.
Or we're going to plan to fail.
100%. Yeah, I think it's important to realize the value of having a proper plan in place and having eyes on you. Mm-hmm. The reality is you can't really teach yourself correct technique.
Yep.
and certainly not as well as someone who is a qualified coach who's looking at you and is giving you in the moment feedback on that technique. And that applies you and I have multiple decades of training experience. I would much prefer someone to watch me lift and give me feedback than try to do it on my own, or even take a video of myself and go back and try coach myself. Like, you just can't be objective in that.
Because even when you're trying to be objective, you're going to be easier on yourself than somebody else is going to be, right?
Right.
Because you're like, hey, I got the reps.
100%. Yeah. So, having any plan done with, good intention and done with effort is better than no plan at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
But having a well thought out, qualified plan that's specific for you and someone to kind of walk you through and guide you through that plan is going to be far better than you trying to guide yourself. Just like, every professional athlete on the planet works with a coach. Michael Jordan had a really high level of knowledge with regards to the game of basketball and had a really high knowledge and experience level when it came to like doing all the weight room stuff. He still uses a coach. Because a coach is someone who helps guide you through and gets you there faster, safer, quicker than you could do it on your own. And we don't allow our high school athletes to teach themselves calculus or teach themselves English. But sometimes we allow our high school athletes to develop themselves. And that's not the right way to do it. It's not a good plan. So,
well, it's like, think about, I've had athletes that I've trained that train 3 times a week, that have a structured plan, that make progress month after month, slow progress, and they keep getting better. And then you have those guys that, like, after high school, you walk into the gym and you see, like, wow, that guy's benching 405. And you come back 5 years later, like, wow, that guy's benching 385. Like,
he went back.
Yeah. He's like, but you ask him, like, what have you been doing? I've been doing the same thing for the past 5 years.
You can't. That doesn't work. Very cool. Man, I think those were some great takeaways. I think that the biggest, the people that this podcast really is for is, of course, high school athletes. Please listen to it, but really for the coaches and for the parents. If you've got high school athletes or middle school athletes, or you have kids that are one day you hope to be athletes, I hope you take this into consideration. Share it with your friends. Share it with your sons and daughters, friends who are on their team. Share it with your coaches, and help create a good developmental plan in place. That's going to help them have success over their athletic career, because I said, you only get to be a high school athlete one time. So even if it's not to go to the pros, the skills, the knowledge, the experiences you take away from doing it correctly can ideally be applied throughout life.
Throughout the rest, exactly.
Ideally we'd have people who played high school sports and continue to be athletes throughout their entire lives.
Exactly, because your average high school athlete is going to grow up to be your average American adult, right?
Which is someone who doesn't exercise and is obese.
Exactly. So it's like, if we can get those proper systems and guidance in place when they're 15, and we can keep that going, they can keep making progress and then be physically fit when they're older, when they're 30, 40, 50 years old. They can move around. They can do things that they want to do. They can be there for their families versus being 66% of the population, which is obese.
I think the beautiful part about the weight room compared to the field a lot of times is the weight room always gives you objective feedback. You always know, I did 5 more pounds, I did 2 more reps, I did that 3 seconds faster, whatever. And there's always objective feedback, and there's always objective progress. And I think having a good coach, having someone who can kind of walk you down that path and teach it all to you is incredibly important, but really incredibly important, as a potential balance. If their soccer coach is just someone who makes them do sprints and gassers to death, and it's always just conditioning, getting yelled at. If that's their experience, if they're a competitive soccer player and that's their experience, middle school through high school or college, a lot of times you see people go, when they're released from that, when they're done playing, they're like, okay, I'll never do that again.
I'm done. I'm done working out. Like I have had enough.
Yeah. I mean, I would say probably 95% of the people I played college football with all said, I will never squat again once I'm done playing college football. And you're like, okay, that's probably not a good plan. Like, squatting is a basic functional movement that you should be able to do the rest of your life.
Yep.
What did we do in college or in high school that made them feel like I'll never do this again? If that's kind of the verbiage they were getting, I'll never run ever again. I'm never going to do sprints ever again.
Then we're doing something wrong, right? Yep.
Yeah, we're doing something wrong. Like we want to set these kids up for not only like at some point you're not going to play sports anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or at least not at the same competitive level. So ideally, what we're doing is we're not sacrificing the next 20, 30, 40 years of a teenager's or a kid's lives for the sake of them being a better high school athlete, right?
Exactly.
We're setting them up for success over life.
If they get to where they don't ever want to do sprints again, well, what happens if you need to sprint after something? What happens if the world is ending and there's an earthquake and you need to run and you haven't ran in 20 years?
Yeah.
You're not going to run.
Or it doesn't have to be the world ending. It's just like basic human function.
Yeah, anything.
Like you're it's like saying like, well, I had to read a lot in high school, so I just don't think I'll read it ever again. It's like, no, like reading is a basic human function. You should probably learn to enjoy reading. If throughout high school the way we've taught you reading makes you never want to read again, we've done it wrong.
Yep.
If the way we developed you is that you never want to sprint again and do things, and you're about to have a kid, but kids love to run.
Yep.
They love it. That's all they want to do is they run everywhere.
Run around, bang, bang, bang.
Where's the breakdown between like that kid who just loves to run and loves to play around and loves to like have fun and shoot balls and kick things and jump off of things and explore the world with their body to the middle-aged adult who
doesn't do any of
it.
Yeah.
Goes to work, sits down, drives home, sits down, watches Netflix.
Yep.
Like, there's a breakdown there, and like we gotta fix that.
Well, yeah, we got to kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah.
Set people up for success.
Yeah. Well, very cool, Matt. That was a great talk. If you guys enjoy the podcast, please be sure to share it, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to NBS Fitness Radio. If you enjoyed the podcast, be sure to share it with your friends, follow us on social media, and check out our website at www.nbsfitness.net. Hit the subscribe button and tune in next time for more NBS Fitness Radio.